to our Wednesday night class. We're going to continue with Pirke Avot. And it's going to be, if you could just close the door, Avram. It's going to be Pirke Mishna Yud Zayin. Pirke Mishna Yud Zayin. Okay. Before I begin the Mishnah, I'd like to throw something out. And would you agree with me that the definition of a Machloket is something which has a negative connotation? Right? I mean, usually when we use the word Machloket, it's not speaking about something which is so positive, right? Whether it's, right, shul politics, not over here. Oh no. But, right? That's it. Not here. In other places, far away, right? Baruch Hashem, right? Machloket usually we understand or we digest, right, in our small minds as something which has a negative connotation to it. So our Mishnah today is going to really be focusing on, first of all, what's considered a Machloket. That's number one. And the other things we're going to learn about is if Machloket is something which is negative, what's a prime example? In order for us to know what a real Machloket is, we got to go back in history, right? Just like Benjamin Franklin said, if you don't learn from history, right, you're doomed to relive it, right? So the Torah itself is going to be pinpointing exactly who we can learn from and the best people we can, stories that happen that we can learn from in the Torah. Okay.
Which Mishnah?
It's Mishnah Yud Zayin. Perek Mishnah Yud Zayin. Kol machloket shehi l'shem shamayim sofa lihitkayem. Any machloket, any argument which is l'shem shamayim for the sake of heaven, sofa lihitkayem, its end will endure. Interesting way of expressing the positive outcome of a machloket which is l'shem shamayim. Sofa lihitkayem, the end will endure. V'she'ena l'shem shamayim, and the one which is not l'shem shamayim, en sofa lihitkayem. Its end will not be fulfilled, will not endure. So asks the Mishnah, Zohi machloket shi l'shem shamayim. What's a prime example of a machloket which is l'shem shamayim? Zo machloket Hillel v'Shammai. This is a machloket which took place between the famous Hillel and Shammai. Hillel and Shammai were known not to agree all that often. I think there's only 3 places the Gemara says that they actually agreed on. Okay, 3 or 4. But most of the time they disagree. V'she'ena l'shem shamayim, what's an example of a machloket which is not for the sake of heaven? Zo machloket Korach v'chol adato. Prime example is Korach v'chol adato. Now, we opened up tonight's class and we asked, what do you think the definition of a machloket really is? So, the truth of the matter is, a machloket we saw from this Mishnah could be something which is positive and could be something which is negative. So what's essentially the difference between the machloket which is positive, which is l'shem shamayim, and the machloket which is not l'shem shamayim? You see, we all have different forms of getting to places, right? My son really enjoys at this time of his life the scooter, okay? Not the right? Not the scooter, vroom vroom, but the scooter, right? The little scooter. There was a point where I enjoyed, yes, an electric scooter, yeah. It's the best form of transportation in Israel, by the way, so I had one for 6 years. And I think I started the trend. It was a little weird when I first got it, in the beginning, Avrech, just like, and I can tell you which rabbi, but one of my rabbis, I went to see him one night, and he's like, I've always wanted to drive one. But, it's going to look weird if anyone sees. So it's late at night, let's hop on, let's drive together. So I started this trend, and by the time I left, I think every avrech, every person learning owned a scooter around the area I lived in. The Americans for sure, not the Israelis. So there are different forms, right, ways of getting from place to place. But you can either take a train, you can take a bus, whatever it is. The idea of a machloket, which is l'shem shamayim, is that the end goal is really mutual. It's all about getting to the emet. And that was the Machloket between Hillel and Shammai. What did they care about? They didn't care about being right. That's not what they cared about. What they cared about is that the emet should come out. How the emet is going to come out, okay, so they happen to have two different views. That's it. But the outcome is the exact same. I always say that the most non-Lishem Shamayim forum, not forum, forum to be a part of when it comes to debating something, which I got sucked into this morning, but it wasn't really a real debate, but I don't know if you saw it, but is really Facebook. Why? I'll explain to you. Facebook is a forum where everyone can see something. And if someone really wants to get a message which is L'Shem Shamayim, and by the way, usually the Machloket which take place always have something to do with religion. That's usually the way it is. The Machlokets that I'm talking about, where people are always going to find a forum to speak in. And, if a person really has a stance on something, so the real way to express your ideas is by private messaging, right? Because you want to get a message across. And if you really care about the message, so what do you want? You want the other person to understand you, so you would private message a person. But when you just throw it out there, what it ends up being a boxing match with 20,000, people viewing who's going to win, quote unquote. So, when it comes to a machloket, there are so many pieces that need to be put together in order for it to be called a L'Shem Shamayim. I'll just give you one example. I saw one of the Mefarshim say, why does it say, Kol Machaloket Shehi L'Shem Shamayim? Why Kol Machaloket? Machloket Shehi L'Shem Shamayim, yada yada yada. V'she'ena L'Shem Shamayim. What's Kol Machloket? Every Machloket. That's something beautiful. That every Machloket, even if it's a Machloket about Torah, but more than that, the entire Machloket itself has to be what? Has to be L'Shem Shamayim if you want it to be Sofa L'Hitkaima, if you want it to endure. But if there is a little ounce and a little speck of Kavod, and I want this one to see what's happening, and I want that one to feel, right, a certain way, by the end of my stepping my foot down, then even if there's a tiny little bit of Kavod involved, then what? That's it. Ena sofa lihitkayem. It will only be sofa lihitkayem if kol machaloket, the entire machloket, is l'shem shamayim. There can't be anything that's a little bit non-kosher involved. Another pshat I saw, which was very nice, is that even if it's not a machloket which is Torah-based, we're learning Pirke Avot, right? Pirke Avot, the worst translation for Pirke Avot are ethics of our fathers. But for conversation's sake, we haven't found another language that can translate Pirke Avot correctly. So, we will say that Kol Machaloket L'Shehi L'Shem Shamayim is, Pirke Avot is coming to teach me what is the way to live. And the way to live is, regardless of whether you're involved in inyanim of Torah or not, Kol Machaloket L'Shehi L'Shem Shamayim, whether it's Torah or whether it's something secular, even if it's about sports, it's irrelevant. At the end of the day, it could be about anything. If it's not L'Shem Shamayim, right, Ena Sofa L'Hitkaima, it's not going to endure. And we're going to see what does it mean Ena Sofa L'Hitkaima, that it's not going to endure. But, Rabotai, it's very important. The best, where do we learn from? We are so rich. You know why we're so rich? We're so rich because we have so many people to learn from. So many times in history, we can look back and we can say, well, so-and-so did this, therefore I better stay away from doing that. The problem is that we never learn. We learn, but we learn the hard way, actually. We do end up learning, but we end up learning the hard way. But the prime examples of Machloket L'Shem Shamayim, it's very easy to find out who was L'Shem Shamayim. You know something? the Netziv, okay, Reb Naftali, I think Amsterdam, okay, the Netziv of Volozhin, okay, the great Netziv, he says something fascinating. He says, you know that the Machloket that took place by Churban Bayit Sheni was why? Why was it? Right? The second Bet HaMikdash was destroyed. Why? Because? Sinat Chinam. Yeah? You know what he says that Sinat Chinam was based on? It was based on Torah Hashkafot. Tell me if this is scary. This doesn't ring a bell. But one side was saying, my way is the correct way, and the other, right? They were orthodox. Everyone was orthodox. One was saying, my way is the correct way, and the other one was saying, my way is the correct way. And each one was fighting. That ended up leading to what? Sinat Chinam. It was all about what? It was all about Yehadut. It's all about yeshiva stuff. It's all about growing, right? It's all about spirituality. Yet what? That is what they faltered on. It was those machlokot which ended up, unfortunately, destroying the Bet HaMikdash. And we're suffering till today because of that. Yes, because we don't have the Bet HaMikdash. But why don't we have the Bet HaMikdash? Because of such machlokot. Unfortunately, these machlokot have not really gone away. It's something that has been haunting us for centuries and centuries. Although, the difference is that usually when the great Chachamim and the great Gedolim argued against each other, it was a Hillel and Shammai type of argument. When it came to the real Sinat Chinam, which it led to, whether it's between the Hasidim and the Litvaks, right? Back in Europe, 200, 300, 400 years ago, the massive, right, argument you had between the Balatanya and the Vilna Gaon as to which approach is the right approach. The Gaon Vilna didn't even want to see the Balatanya. The Balatanya wanted to go. No, the Gaon Vilna would not even see him. But Rabotai, we have to understand and we have to be able to differentiate. We are not these Chachamim. These Chachamim have the right to disagree with one another because they're on the level of a Machloket Shehi L'Shem Shammai. You know, it doesn't say Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai. It says Hillel v'Shammai. Why Hillel v'Shammai? Why not Bet Hillel? We know when we speak about Bet Hillel, we're going to say Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai. It doesn't say this. Kol Machloket Shehi L'Shem Shammai Zovat L'Yitkayem. Who is that? Is who Machloket Shehi L'Shem Shammai? So Machloket Hillel v'Shammai. Why not Bet Hillel u Bet Shammai? You know what the answer is? Because Hillel and Shammai were the ones who argued very seldomly. They didn't argue that much between the two. They argued. It was Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai who constantly argued with one another. They were the ones who constantly argued with one another. The machloket that there was between the Ro'eh Lot and the Ro'eh Avraham, the shepherds of Lot, it wasn't Avraham and Lot themselves. It was the shepherds. That's usually who it is, by the way. It's usually the people, the followers, who end up, erupting a machloket, which is L'Shem Shamayim, into something which is Shelo L'Shem Shamayim. It's important for us to know that Shammai and Hillel were two parties which, because of their machloket, they did not cut off ties with one another. As a matter of fact, Shammai's kids ended up marrying, the daughters of Hillel, and both families were assimilated very beautifully between the two. It was fine. There was no problem between the two. The Musar movement, which also took place, a few hundred years ago, said Rabbi Sultan was the first one in Europe to introduce what the Musar was, the Musar movement was. It's very interesting. They had machlokot in the yeshiva movement as to what kind of way you're supposed to be learning. And many yeshivas disagreed with the Musar movement. They said, 1 second, why do I need to learn Musar, such as what we're learning right now? Just learn Gemara. If you learn Gemara properly, you can pull out the correct messages that you need to learn. It's very simple. Why? Why do you have to constantly bring in new things and bring in the Musar movement? And the truth is, they're right. You should be able to pull Musar lessons from the Gemara. You should be able to. And once upon a time, we were on that level that we were able to do such a thing. But you know what? Not everyone is on that level. You know, there was a story once about this Zionist rabbi, a great Rav, who went to visit this Haredi rabbi. And the Haredi rabbi hosted him in his home. And they stayed together, how long it was for. But one of the students of the rabbi, of the Tzioni rabbi, approached his Rebbe and he said, Kvod Harav, he said, I don't understand. You completely disagree on so many fundamental issues with this rabbi. How can you possibly go and sleep by his house and allow yourself to be hosted by him? We're two different machanot. We're not the same. So you know what the Rav told him? Amazing. He told him, as a matter of fact, you and I are miles away. Me and that rabbi are a lot closer than you two. Because what's really distancing us two is many of the 613 mitzvot. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, right? Evedan et kol ha'adam. I mean, you really, if you think about separating yourself from someone else, segregating yourself, I have nothing to do with you because I have a difference of opinion. He goes, me and him, we agree on almost everything. Shabbat, kashrut, this, that, so many things we agree on. So many things we agree on. We agree on ben adam lachavero, and every aspect of ben adam lachavero we agree on. So there happens to be a hashkafa, right, that we both don't agree on. That's fine. But that doesn't make a difference that shouldn't make a difference in my being connected to you. I am directly connected to this person. I'm closer to him than I'm closer to you. And that's the difference. So until you shape up and you work on your ben adam lachavero, there's going to be a much bigger space between us two than between me and that rabbi. You know, if you look at the examples that are given, which is Hillel and Shammai, which is a Machloket that's L'Shem Shammai, and the opposite of that is a Machloket like who? Korach v'adato. It's important for us to pay attention. Who was Korach and what does it mean, Korach v'adato? It's very interesting, by the way. It says Korach v'chol adato. It doesn't say Korach and Moshe. It says Hillel and Shammai. They were against each other. It was Machloket right there. But it doesn't say Korach and Moshe. It says Korach v'adato. And furthermore, it doesn't either use the word Machloket the second time around. It says Ezohi Machloket shehi l'shem shamayim, zohi Machloket Hillel v'shamayim. V'she'ena l'shem shamayim. It doesn't say V'she'ena Machloket l'shem shamayim, Machloket she'ena l'shem shamayim. It doesn't use the word Machloket. Why? So I want to share with you something really nice. You know, Korach, let's just go back. What was the Machloket that there was? The Machloket that there was that Korach essentially, V'adato, wanted to be the ones to have certain rights that they weren't entitled to at the time. Right? He wanted to be the Kohen Gadol, so he would come with different ta'anot, right? What would he say? For example, the Midrash brings down, right? Rashi brings it down, that he would say, hey, Moshe, why is it that, no, he would ask him. He would say, he wouldn't really ask. He would make a statement, but in a question form. He would say, Moshe, you need to wear tzitzit. Yeah, you need to wear tzitzit. Blue strands, yeah, blue strands. He says, well, let me ask you a question. If the beged is all blue, does the beged need tzitzit? Need a blue strand? So, yeah, of course. He would start laughing. He would say, if a little string is able to be poter an entire beged, which is white, and be mekayim the mitzvah tzitzit, so if I have a blue beged made out of tchelet, Why wouldn't that be patur from? You have a whole baguette. There should be patur from a little strand of tzitzit, right? And he would ridicule Moshe, right? Moshe wouldn't even respond to things like that because you have to understand, when someone comes up to you and they tell you, they don't ask you, but they start off a conversation, and if it's about religion or whatever it is, and they start saying, "See, I don't really agree with the way that this certain sect decides to pray, or the way that they decide to learn, or whatever it may be. Tell me something. Where's it coming from that they decided that they can live their life this way?" That's not a question. That's a statement, right? Big red flag. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your time, right? Try not to waste my time on Facebook, by the way, because usually that's what ends up happening, is people throw out, they don't really want to know. How many times have I really seen a debate where someone says on a public forum, "What do you think about so-and-so?" Not to reel him in and then attack him, but to genuinely, sincerely ask a question. What do you think about so-and-so? Usually not, because if he really had a genuine question, he would private message the person, pick up a phone, call the person. Important things should always be said face to face. Always. Always. Right? You don't write to your wife, right, "I love you," right? You tell her, "I love you." If you're not around, right, and you already said "I love you," then you can write to her. But, to really get that message across properly, you have to make sure to say it face to face. Important things should always be said face to face. So it's very interesting. Korach v'adato, I saw one pshat. The reason why it doesn't say that the Machloket was between Korach and Moshe is because it wasn't. It was one-sided. A Machloket that's not L'Shem Shammai is really one-sided. It was Korach. It wasn't Moshe's fault. One of the most non-true, foolish lines that I have ever heard is that it takes two to tango. It's not true. It's absolutely not true. They say, in order to get into a fight, it takes two to tango. I don't buy that. That's not true. There are many times that one party is completely wrong. And that's the end of the story. What are you supposed to do? There are many times, guess what? You can't do anything. Okay? Your hishtadlut is to walk away. Your hishtadlut is to be quiet. Your hishtadlut is to humble yourself. Your hishtadlut, yes, sometimes is getting embarrassed by the other party. That's your hishtadlut, because you know what? Anything more than that is just going to ruin the situation and turn it into something even worse. Korach v'adato, you want to know which is L'Shem Shammai? The Machloket, not only was it one-sided, but the Machloket was between Korach and Adato, because even amongst themselves, each one wanted to be the Kohen Gadol. And each one was fighting. So Machloket Shlo L'Shem Shammai is not that I have my tzevet over here, I have my army, and we're all together and there's achdut. No, there's no achdut even amongst yourself, because everyone is selfish and everyone is in it for themselves. That's a Machloket She'ena L'Shem Shammai. That's the definition. I was thinking about an example of what a Machloket is. And a Machloket essentially is taking two opposite things. For example, Ish Umayim. Take water, right? And take fire. Two totally opposite things. Put them together. What do you have? They're both fighting. They're both fighting. Either the water is going to put them out, or the fire is going to overcome it. Okay? But essentially, you have nothing at the end of the day if they're both fighting. If you look at the word Shammai, Shammai is a mixture of Ish, Umayim. That's what it is. And if you mix them both together, Ish, Umayim, okay, and it's mixed with the right intentions, then you can take the two most opposite opinions. Hillel will say mutar, right? And Shammai will say asur. But you know what? They're both going to come together. It's going to endure. Why? Because it's L'Shem Shammai. The worst, Rabotai, is when people take a Machloket and in the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they say that it's L'Shem Shamayim, that is something which HaKadosh Baruch Hu detests the most. Because then what are you doing? You're saying, okay, it's L'Shem Shamayim. It's not that it's not L'Shem Shamayim, it's L'Shem Shamayim. But the way that I define L'Shem Shamayim is by going out and doing a jihad, right? That's what I define it as. Were they really L'Shem Shamayim when the Crusaders went around killing people? Right? They believed they were doing it L'Shem Shamayim. When it says Kashe alai peridatchem, that it's hard for me, my separation from you, right? After Churban Bayit Sheni, the Gaon Mevilna explains Kashe alai peridatchem is that Hashem says Kashe peridatchem, you're separating yourselves. But why? Alai, because of me. That's how he explains it. Which means that you go out there and you tell people that you're getting into a machloket because of me. That's the worst thing you could do. That's the worst thing you could do. Kashe alai peridatchem, which means it's hard on me. Meaning your peridatchem, you're separating yourself, is alai. You're saying it's because of me. That's the worst. That's how the Shekhinah feels since the time of the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, which we say, it's because of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that I'm doing this. I'm doing this L'Shem Shamayim. I'm doing this L'Shem Shamayim. You know, it's fascinating. The things which are brought down in the Torah, which are supposed to bring the most achdut, always ends up being the opposite. A classical example of this is the mitzvah of Eruv. You know, in Eruv, the whole point of an Eruv is to bring shalom and bring achdut between ish le're'ehu. That's what the Gemara says the function of an Eruv is. Do you know that I don't know of any bigger Machloket that takes place in the Orthodox world more than the Eruvin? And each one is saying it's pasul, and how can you possibly do this, and people are getting into fights, and I know families who have gotten into fights because their children relied on the Eruv, and how could they possibly rely on the Eruv? If you cared enough, it's not about the Eruv. Because at the end of the day, yeshal mali smoch. Not doing something against the Torah. There are rabbis who hold of the Eruv and there are rabbis who don't. But if you think about yourself, if you think about the other person and where they're coming from, and not about my kavod and what people are going to say, because I'm going to see my children carrying in a place where the community doesn't carry. Right? My high. What are you getting to? The same thing. You're leading to a machloket she'ena l'shem shamayim. That's what you're getting to. So you have to be very careful. It could be the most, you know, it says, we asked the question, we said, why doesn't it use the word machloket the second time around? V'she'ena l'shem shamayim, zo machloket, Korach v'chol adato. So I saw something very nice. V'she'ena l'shem shamayim is that it's including even shalom, which isn't l'shem shamayim. It's not saying a machloket she'ena l'shem shamayim. It's not using the word machloket. It's saying she'ena l'shem shamayim. What's not l'shem shamayim? Even if you have shalom, which is not l'shem shamayim, and it's not pure, and it's not 100%, it's going to end up being like Korach v'adato. Even shalom. And you're diplomatic about things, right? You hate the guy's guts. You can't stand him, right? And you're controlling yourself diplomatically. Me'achuz. Beautiful. You know how to contain yourself. You're very respectful. Shalom. That type of shalom is not enough. It has to be sincere. Because it'll one day or the other, it's going to end up coming out. That's the way it is. The Ben Ish Chai, he says on Ubnei Korach v'chol adato, he says, what's pshat Ubnei Korach v'chol adato? He says that every generation right? It says, Ubnei Korach v'chol adato. It says, lo metu, they didn't die. So it means they didn't die. They died. It says, lo metu means that in every generation you have a Korach and an adato. Unfortunately, right? Till Mashiach comes, right? Hopefully before then. But unfortunately, that's the way it is. But the question is, we're not going to be able to change the world. That we know. We've said this story over from the Chafetz Chaim. The Chafetz Chaim said that he wanted to go out and he wanted to change the world. So he went out and he realized it's too difficult. So what did he say? He said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go and I'm going to change my entire city. He went out and he tried and he couldn't anymore. He said, you know what? I'm going to go and I'm going to try to change my entire family. And he worked on his family, He just couldn't. He says, you know what? I realize at the end of the day, I have to change one person, and that's myself. These nisyonot are going to be coming up because that's the reality of life. It's out there. It's going to hit us. It's going to knock us when we don't expect it, when we do expect it. But we have to prep ourselves. And we have to know the fundamental difference between what is L'Shem Shamayim and what isn't L'Shem Shamayim. One of the most important things we learned here tonight was that even if you have a tiny speck of Shelo L'Shem Shamayim, be very, very careful, because that will haunt us. It will haunt us ultimately. It will, one way or another. It has to be as pure as possible. And then Bezrat Hashem is going to be Sofa L'Hitkaima. No question about it. There's two forms, when a group is fighting about something, there's a Machloket. So the classical example is Korach v'adato, Shelo L'Shem Shamayim, and L'Shem Shamayim is Hillel and Shammai. I want to speak just for the next couple of minutes a little bit about L'Shem Shamayim Machloket. So one thing we've said so far was that there's a mutual understanding that we both want to get to the same place. And that is the truth. That's the emet. How we're going to get there? Well, we have different views, right? One is Haredi, one is Zionist, one is... there's different views at the end of the day. But we both have the same, hopefully, we both have the same goal, which is to get closest to Hashem as possible. Okay? Now, the mechanics of arguing. Is it enough for me to not be jealous of you? Is it enough for me to say, okay, I'm not going to argue with you and I respect your opinion? Is that enough? I think there's another step more than that. You can sometimes not be jealous of somebody, but you can take it a step further and you can be happy for the other person, which is a totally different madriga. You can be a person who happens to stay away from Machloket, but then you could be a person who's Ohev Shalom v'Rodef Shalom. That's already a different world. That was Aaron HaKohen. In every midah, you could be like that. You could be a person who's an honest person, and he would never hurt a fly. But then you can find people who will go out of their way in order to help people, right, in many different ways, shapes, and forms. So there's different levels. Now, if I'm arguing with somebody, is it enough that, something? I'm going to accept, if I'm wrong, his opinion? Is that enough? That's one level. But there's a second level. The second level is taking the opinion that the other person says and saying, not only are you right, but I'm wrong, and now I'm going to thrive off your opinion, and I'm going to build on your opinion. That is a person who's L'Shem Shamayim at the end of the day. It's one thing to say, in marriage, you're right, but it's a whole different level to say, you're right, and I'm wrong. That's already a different level. Right? That's the idea of shalom. Shalom is really building and building as much as you possibly can. The sky is the limit when it comes to shalom. It doesn't end. It's not about just getting along because you didn't step in my territory. It's about going out, just like our amazing, amazing country, right? And our amazing soldiers. They go out there and they actually build these field hospitals, right? They don't hurt the other countries. More than that, they go out there and they help the other countries. That's what it's all about. Kol machloket shehi l'shem shamayim sofa lihitkayem. V'she'ena l'shem shamayim zo machloket Korach v'chol adato. Baruch Hashem, we've got a great view of what a l'shem shamayim machloket is, what a shelo l'shem shamayim machloket is, and I want to end off with this. The Gaon Mivilna, he says, Kol amal adam lefihu. All troubles are what? Are lefihu, are because of, are lefihu, go according to the mouth. The Gaon Mivilna says, all the troubles that we bring upon ourselves are lefihu, are because of the mouth. It's because of the way that we decide to communicate with others, and we decide to debate others, and we decide to argue with others, whether it's our wives, whether it's our friends, whether it's our employees, our employers. It's irrelevant. A person has to be really, really careful, because the machaloket which comes about really starts off with what? Dibur. Machshava, dibur, and maaseh. And if a person really, and this is not our subject tonight, which is Shmirat HaLashon, but if a person really focuses on Shmirat HaLashon, but not Shmirat HaLashon as in not speaking Lashon, Shmirat HaLashon and being careful that what comes out of your mouth, we have to train ourselves of only having good things coming out of our mouth. So B'ezrat Hashem, when we get into arguments, they're going to be more L'Shem Shamayim, they're not L'Shem Shamayim. But we have to start somewhere. I think a place to start, it's not about listening to a shiur and hearing nice insights. Well, it is, but it's not only about that. The main part about our shiurim is to walk away perhaps with an uvda, with something we can practice, to take away with. Because if we just leave and we say it was a nice class and we go back to our regular life, that's it. What did we gain? Yeah, we gained an hour of Talmud Torah, which is incredible. But you missed the boat. You missed the boat. Hashem gave you the gems. Take the gem and build on it. Make a ring out of it. How do you do that? Start using our mouth for the right things. When we get into an argument, don't argue back. Okay? Accept it. Accept it. Once. Do it once in the next week. You get into an argument, accept that there is an argument, someone thinks differently than you. Usually if you're going to argue with the person, it's going to escalate into something worse, and no one's going to get anywhere. Be a mevater. Just surrender. Okay, you're right, I'm wrong. And that's the way to slowly practice. It starts with the mouth, and unfortunately it ends with many different maasim. But machshava, dibur, maaseh. The thought process, the mouth, the way we say things, and results into certain situations. So we have to be very, very careful. And B'ezrat Hashem, I just want to say, because we made the class, the Ilui Nishmat, Yaakov's father, I just want to say a couple of words, although I have no idea who Yaakov's father was. But oftentimes, there's a saying in English, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Now I have to know his father to be able to say that. But in Yahadut, we know the Torah teaches us that the child is the leg of the father. And the way that a person is able to do tremendous good for his father's neshama is by being his support, is by being that extension. And the way you're his extension and you push him up and you rise him up in the shamayim is by doing mitzvot, and it's by learning Torah, it's by coming to tefillah, it's by doing what HaKadosh Baruch Hu expects of us to do. But more so, all of this is in order for us to learn how to be a proper Jew. And if there's something that I could say nice about Yaakov, I could say many things nice, but there's one thing I can say which is directly connected to us, is I'm assuming Yaakov's father was a person who was very L'Shem Shamayim, was a person who didn't like Machloket, because if he did, chances are Yaakov would have come out the same way, and Yaakov didn't. So, Zot Hashem, the shir should be it should be an aliyah for the neshama, and Ruach Adonai tinicheu began Eden, u'v'chol b'chad Yisrael, amen ken yiratzon. Chazak u'baruch.